Well, there are two very different methods of doing handwriting analysis. One of them is called trait stroke method, where you examine in minute detail each individual stroke and you basically build it up into a laundry list of personality traits. The other one is more intuitive. It's called the holistic or the Gestalt method, where you look at the handwriting as like a portrait and how it fits, how the space that you use, the form, the movement, how it all fits together. And that way you get a good picture of the overview of the personality.
That's what you do.
Well, I do a combination of the two. I certainly do a scientific analysis with measurements and looking at it under a microscope and doing a lot of detail. But before I do that, I like to look at the writing, as I did with yours, and get a feeling for the whole personality and then break it down into the parts.
Before you say anything, I just want the audience to know that I had told you that I was going off to Egypt, and I was like really rushed, but I wanted to send you a letter with my handwriting. That's what you asked for, so you could study it in advance. And I said later that this is not my pretty handwriting, because whenever I would do anything like this, I'd want to make it really nice. But it was like, I wanted to do this, and I tried to make it nice, but it wasn't working, and I refused to redo this over again, because I have no time. So I just did it. And you said, what did you say about that?
Well, I said that that was a better sample, because it shows who you really are. When you were going to go back and copy it and make it pretty, that would be your persona. That's who you want to present to the world. This is more like the real you.
Okay. So what kinds of things did you come up with?
Well, before I tell you that, I'd like to say that handwriting is a reflection of your inner self. It's a projection. And there are 4 things that you cannot tell about handwriting. You can tell your strengths, your weaknesses, your potentials. It shows who you are today and where you came from. But the things that you cannot tell as an analyst are the person's age. You can tell their emotional age. You cannot tell their sex. You cannot tell which hand they write with, and you cannot tell the future.
Oh.
Just your potentials.
Okay.
Who you are right now. So your handwriting showed, first of all, it's the kind of writing that I really like to do, because it's a very highly developed person. You've come a long way. You've worked through a lot of your old garbage that we all have, and you've integrated your experiences in your life. You've learned how to use things and to turn them to your advantage.
Well, that's true, knowing where I've come from. But my thought was, when I was writing this, is that this is kind of sloppy, and I don't know, I was just wondering if you were going to see like the more downside of me, and yet you're talking about the positive side. So, you know, really beautiful, perfect handwriting that you see so often, that's not necessarily, you know, a really together beautiful person.
No, no. A lot of people who write very beautifully are alcoholics or criminals.
Really?
So you should be glad. Your handwriting shows a lot of spontaneity. You're a very outgoing person. You've learned how to know when to be outgoing and when to be quiet, when to hold back. You're not afraid to say what you feel. You cut out all the non-essential details. And that would be true in the way you communicate with people. You're an excellent communicator. But it's also true in other areas of your life. You don't want a lot of extraneous junk around. And I imagine in your home, it probably reflects that too. You have more than just the bare essentials. You need beauty in your life. But because the pressure in your writing is rather light, and it shows that you're not a materialistic-oriented person. You are more spiritual, and you like nice things, and you like to be surrounded by beauty. But you're not willing to put a lot of your energy into just working just to get a lot of stuff.
Wow. A lot of people know me who watch this show, and a lot of people just think they know me because they see the show all the time. That, I have said that for 20 years. It was like you would think, on one level, getting to know me, that I'm materialistic because I love to travel, and whenever I can be upgraded to first class, I really try for it. You know, and you know, I'm always like trying to work it to stay in better hotels, or, you know, so it's like I'm really wanting to go first class all the time, but I don't really do anything to get the money.
Right.
You know, I'd rather spend my nights reading a book than actually trying to come up with a book as a gimmick to make $1 million. I won't sit at a word processor to figuring out how to make the money.
Well, that's what comes out. That's the value of the things that you have for themselves because you love the things, not because of what they're worth.
Interesting.
It shows your handwriting in your capital I. Capital I shows a lot about your feelings towards your parents and how you've integrated your internal parents.
Well, that ought to be interesting.
Well, it shows that women have played a very strong role in your life, probably starting with your mother, or if your mother didn't take care of you, then whatever the female did, grandmother or whatever. But I'm going to assume that it's your mother. And it looks like your father possibly wasn't there, either physically or just not there for you emotionally. And so there's a tendency to kind of make women like larger than life, to have a very strong respect.
You got that from the letter I.
Well, that and other things. Nothing in handwriting means anything by itself. Like the way you cross your T's and dot your I's, that means nothing.
Well, that's true. Because my father was in the military, as most people know, so he wasn't there.
Okay, well, I didn't know that.
Right.
Okay.
You're good. Go on.
There's also some pain associated with the past that you haven't worked through yet. Because what you do is when painful experiences hit you, or painful memories, I should say, from distant past, early childhood, you say, like, I don't want to look at that. Go away. Just blow it off. And so that's something that you may or may not want to explore. Because the trouble with old memories that we don't work through and old experiences is that they hang on forever until we deal with them. You're a very independent person, and you don't like to be restricted in any way. Don't, no strict schedules, nobody breathing down your neck. You want to be on your own to make your own decisions and to do your own thing. Let's see what else I want to say. You're very highly intuitive. You leave yourself open. Some people have to look at things very logically and string all their ideas together one after the other, but you're open to the environment and things sort of bombard you, and so people wonder, how did you manage to pick that up? You read their mind.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Well, you're very...
But I never think that now that's what's really weird. When I do that, I'm always like surprised that it happens. It happens all the time. But like I could start doing a reading for somebody and it's like you're reading my mind. I've never told that to anybody. And I was, really? No.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're just very open. It's a natural thing. You don't have to think about it. Intuition is something that you know what you know without knowing how you know it.
But I've always had this trouble that I always thought that people consider themselves psychic, know when they're being psychic. I'm being psychic and this is the truth and listen to me. And I can't do that. I never know when it's coming through.
Well, I think there's a difference between intuition and quote-unquote being psychic.
Well, probably, yeah.
But it's because you leave yourself open. You're not a closed-up, uptight kind of person. Spontaneous, again, and being open to everything. And where we see that in handwriting is along the baseline, the line of writing in particular. There's a lot of openness, and there are breaks between the letters.
Yeah.
Smooth breaks.
Yeah,
which we call intuitive breaks. It's leaving space for things to come through.
Oh.
The only negative part about it is that we all have something negative, and it's not a big deal.
I know.
But I think when you're perceiving things, you tend to look for information that's going to confirm preconceived biases that you have. So your perceptions, your conclusions may be a little more negative than they might be. You think, does that sound true? Direct and to the point. You sort of cut to the chase and get to the heart of a matter. That would be seen in cutting off details in the writing, like no extra loops, no extra strokes, just getting to the point. And you have your handwriting, even though I had not met you at the time, I could see that you had a charismatic way of dealing with people, a lot of charm and flexibility. You know how to adapt to a lot of different people.
Now let me ask you, the things that you're saying are really good. Can a person learn what those techniques are, those rhythms, and just do it, and it could be like a behavioral therapy? If you learn to write, let's say you're writing real tight, and that might mean you're compulsive, I don't know. And then all of a sudden if you force yourself to make big loops and be more open, which may be bad, but you know what I'm trying to say, the writing could change the mind.
As a matter of fact, there is a whole branch of graphology called graphotherapy, which I do with clients. Some graphologists will tell a person to change things in their handwriting. But because handwriting is a reflection of who we are and our experiences, there's a reason for everything being there. And if you change one thing without really knowing what it is, like for instance, if I told you to start making loops on your lower zone letters, which would be like G's and Y's and P's, and you hadn't been doing that, all of a sudden I'm making you bring up past feelings that you may not be ready to deal with, and that could be very damaging to you. So it's important to know what you're doing. But there are what we call form drawings, where if your handwriting was real tight and you wanted to open up, then I would say don't do it in your handwriting, but take a big sheet of paper and make big arm circles this way. And we have a pattern of doing that at a particular time and write affirmations to go along with it. And within about 30 days, you might start seeing changes in your handwriting, and you feel different because it's like a subliminal message.
Now, being a double Scorpio, you're figuring out the secrets in a person's personality. Have you ever done this for like police or detectives?
Yes, I do work with detectives, and I have done some forgery detection with the police department. But I also do work with companies for personnel profiling, making sure that the right people get in the right job, and I do compatibility screening.
Oh, and I remember your resume you sent me. You were on Unsolved Mysteries?
Yes, that was back in February. They sent me 6 letters. They didn't tell me who it was, but it turned out to be the handwriting of Butch Cassidy. And they asked me if the 6 letters were all written by the same person, and if they were, it would prove that Butch Cassidy was not killed in Bolivia, as in the movie, but that he actually escaped to the United States the year before and lived for another 30 years. And 5 of the letters were his, including the last one that was written in the 1930s.
Ooh.
So he lived.
Ooh.
I guess they can have a sequel now.
Oh, well, how did they pick you?
They wrote to an organization that I'm associated with, a nonprofit group called the American Handwriting Analysis Foundation in San Jose, and they asked for reference in Los Angeles.
My, very impressive.
Well, I just got an interesting sample in the mail yesterday from Andy Rooney of 60 Minutes.
Yeah?
So that's going to be an interesting one to do.
You're going to do his.
I'm going to do his. Yeah, I've had some interesting people. Jimmy Smits, who's just made a new movie, and Barbara DeAngelis, the talk show hostess, psychologist.
I know her.
Do you?
She's been on my show maybe 2 times or so. I've taken her workshops. She called you and said,
Actually, I volunteered.
Oh, did you do her workshop or something? And
I went to a broadcast that she had, and
Well, could you tell from, well, you're only looking at handwriting, you're not predicting the future. When I did her chart many years ago, I said, you're going to become quite famous. And I think that's why we became friends, because I told her she'd be famous. And she has. Her books have done really great. She got on national TV. But when I was in Egypt, that was all canceled. And one person was telling me, well, that's over with. And I said, not Barbara DeAngelis.
No.
She's going to pop up on another television show, or she'll just do radio, or she'll always do talk shows. I said, this woman is not over, trust me. That's the future, but could you tell that in her handwriting?
Well, what I could say about her handwriting is that even though she had a lot of concern about the future at the time she wrote it, she has the drive and the imagination to go on and to come back, to bounce back from bad experiences and to go around obstacles.
Oh, okay. Is there any kind of advice you would give me for to make my love life, the career? I have such faith. I should probably work harder and become more aggressive instead of just believing this is unfolding. But it's only more money, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't see why you would want to do that, because I think you're pretty happy with the way things are.
I'm already living my dream. You know, what am I going to have? A more expensive car? You know, a car's a car, you know. I still travel around the world, you know, so I stay in a $1,000 a night hotel room. I don't want to really have to work just to have things better in the world I'm already in. But what about the love life? You got advice for that?
Yes. I think that your love life will be improved when you have been able to work out this old childhood junk. And until then, what happens is you don't allow people to be truly intimate with you. I mean, you're very friendly and responsive and warm and all the qualities that you want in a friend. But when it comes time to being really intimate, you set up barriers.
Right.
So that's, you know, you still got some work to do.
You are very good.
Thank you.
What I'm really glad that you, when you did this is, like I said, a lot of people watch this and they really know me pretty well on certain levels, and so you've really hit on some really very valid points. We have like a minute or so left.